The flight was calm until the moment her tray tilted. A cold splash of coffee streaked across the silk blouse of a poised black woman seated in business class. The flight attendant froze for a heartbeat, then smirked instead of apologizing. Passengers glanced, then looked away, pretending not to notice. But the woman didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed, unflinching, her silence louder than any argument. The hum of the engines seemed to fade under the weight of that moment. Somewhere behind her calm gaze, something powerful was brewing. What? No one knew, not the passengers, not the smirking attendant, was that this woman held the authority to stop the entire flight before it ever touched the ground. The hum of the cabin slowly returned, but the tension lingered like static in the air. The black woman, Dr. Naomi Clark, sat upright, her posture composed, her mind quietly measuring the scene. A senior aerospace investigator for the Federal Aviation Authority, she was on her way to Washington for a high-level briefing on flight safety violations. Ironically, she now found herself witnessing one unfold, not in machinery, but in humanity. The attendant, a young blonde in a crisp uniform, whispered excuses to another passenger while shooting occasional glances toward Naomi's stained blouse. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just quiet condescension wrapped in a polite smile. Naomi took a slow breath and turned her gaze toward the window. Clouds drifted beneath the wings, soft and harmless, so unlike the storm brewing behind her eyes. Around her, people buried themselves in screens and magazines, pretending nothing had happened. She'd seen this before. The subtle dismissal, the unspoken judgment. Years of professionalism had taught her when to respond and when to wait. But this time, something inside her shifted. It wasn't just about a spill. It was about the message behind it. And as the plane cut through thin air, Naomi knew one thing for certain. This flight was about to reveal more than turbulence. Minutes passed, but the air still felt thick with quiet arrogance. The flight attendant returned down the aisle, serving drinks to others with exaggerated sweetness, avoiding even a glance toward Naomi. Yet whispers began to ripple among nearby passengers, the kind that spread when guilt hovers unspoken. Naomi remained motionless, her composure unsettlingly calm. When the captain announced mild turbulence ahead, seatbelts clicked. The attendant brushed past Naomi's arm while collecting trash, muttering something under her breath that made two passengers exchange awkward looks. Naomi's blouse was still damp, but her patience had dried. She took out her identification folder, not to flash it, just to remind herself who she truly was. Years of ensuring air safety, investigating crashes, enforcing discipline among flight crews. And here she was, disrespected in the very system she had dedicated her life to protecting. The turbulence intensified. The plane trembled slightly, coffee cups rattling in their holders. Naomi pressed the service button calmly. The same attendant appeared, her smile tight, tone brittle. She didn't expect to find Naomi holding an FAA clearance badge. Naomi's voice, measured and quiet, carried more weight than thunder. Though her words weren't heard aloud, the look on her face said everything. "You've just violated federal conduct standards mid-air." The attendant's complexion drained. Her lips parted, searching for words that wouldn't come. The other crew, members began to notice. Something in Naomi's unwavering expression signaled authority, not a passenger's complaint, but an official's assessment. Then came the chime. Naomi picked up the intercom, her badge visible under the cabin light. The flight attendant's knees nearly buckled as Naomi made a single coded report to the cockpit, a procedural phrase every trained pilot and crew understood. Within moments, the engines steadied, and the captain's calm but sharp voice echoed, "Cabin crew, return to stations immediately. We'll be diverting this flight." The color drained from the attendant's face as the realization hit. The woman she humiliated wasn't powerless. She was the reason airplanes stayed in the sky. and the reason this one was now about to descend. The cabin fell into uneasy silence as the aircraft began its unexpected descent. Passengers exchanged nervous glances, sensing that something serious was unfolding, though no one quite knew what. The seatbelt lights flickered on. Outside, the clouds thickened like curtains closing on an act that had gone too far. The flight attendant stood frozen near the galley, her hands trembling as the intercom announced their diversion to Denver for an unscheduled inspection. But Naomi's calm presence amid the chaos was commanding, every motion deliberate, every breath measured. She wasn't angry, she was in control, the kind of control that came from decades of authority earned, not granted. When the captain stepped out briefly, the crew's confusion melted into recognition. His eyes landed on Naomi, and his tone shifted instantly. "Ma'am, I wasn't informed you were on board." Respect replaced uncertainty. Naomi gave a brief nod, her silence enough to confirm everything. She didn't need to scold, didn't need to raise her voice. The evidence of misconduct, insubordination, negligence, and prejudice was already sealed in the moment that hot coffee met her blouse. As the wheels touched the runway, the cabin exhaled collectively, unaware of the deeper storm awaiting the crew. The attendant's lips quivered as she realized this landing wasn't routine. It was judgment. Naomi stood, her presence unshaken, as airport officials boarded the plane, and in that suspended moment, between humiliation and consequence, the entire cabin understood. She hadn't grounded the flight out of revenge. She grounded it to remind the skies themselves that dignity still carried authority. As the engines powered down and the cabin doors opened, silence followed Naomi down the aisle. The same passengers who had looked away earlier now watched her, with quiet awe. She didn't glare, didn't smirk, just walked with calm, measured grace. Behind her, airport safety officers stepped in, their reflective vests catching the sterile light as they approached the trembling attendant. The captain met Naomi near the exit, his voice low, almost reverent. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He already knew the protocol. Any act of discrimination aboard a U.S. aircraft fell under direct FAA jurisdiction, and standing before him was the very official tasked with enforcing it. Outside, the plane, the Colorado air was cool and sharp. Naomi paused for a moment, watching the horizon burn gold in the late afternoon sun. She could have demanded punishment, made headlines, or filed public charges. But she didn't. Her silence had already spoken louder than outrage ever could. Hours later, as news quietly circulated through aviation circles about the incident involving an FAA inspector, one detail stood out. The attendant was dismissed before the next sunrise, and somewhere, above the clouds, another plane took off under Naomi's watchful authority. Because justice, she believed, didn't always roar. Sometimes it simply landed. Respect isn't about who serves or whose seated. It's about who stands for what's right, even when no one's watching.